Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
So tonight I also want to talk about government control. It'll all flow together at some point. Everything we're talking about tonight will actually come together into a discussion about government control. That will be the end point. That's why I think that the thumbnail I created said something like Crickets, Capone, and government control.
I was really kind of baffled by that.
Yeah.
Where are we going today?
Deep into my mind.
Where are you taking me, Rick?
Yes, on a journey into the twilight zone of my subconscious.
No, crickets is twilight zone to me, to most of us, right?
Yeah,
it's icky. It's gross.
I do most of my best thinking. Well, most of my thinking. I don't know how much of it is my best thinking, but I think when I'm laying in bed because it's quiet. And I woke up and I started thinking about those IRS agents. And then I started putting things together. And it's all connected. Everything is connected. Even Al Capone.
Yeah. Well, remember, that's how they got Al Capone.
That's right.
Tax evasion.
That's right.
The G-Man got him.
Yep, that's right. So you start to think about that.
You don't want to be thinking about that, though, at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to sleep. Holy cow, that'll give you nightmares, man. I mean, is that what wakes you up at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I woke up and I was like, IRS agents.
Oh, geez.
You know, Al Capone got taken down that way. You know, if you connect that dot to that dot, this is 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's right. The other reason I woke up like and my eyes opened wide at 4 a.m. was because I keep coming back to fascism. That word just in the last couple of weeks has been popping up left and right. So just to show you what I'm talking about, let me find it here for you. I mentioned this book, and I'd like to get this guy on the show.
Oh, is that Rise of the Fourth Reich?
Yeah, so here it is.
Talking
it's right
about
here.
last night.
Yeah. I'll show you the cover. I want to get him on the show. I haven't read the book.
I'm curious.
I know sort of what it's about, but there it is. Rise of the Fourth Reich.
Oh, it's Jim Mars.
Yeah.
Well, hell. Yeah, I love Jim Mars.
You're going to tell me you know him too?
I have met Jim Mars, at several JFK conferences. He's
there you go.
Expert on the JFK assassination. But this is a reprint because he put that book out back in 2009. Unfortunately, Jim is deceased, so you can't get him on the show.
I'm glad
it's
you knew
a timely topic right now, and
yeah,
it'd be a good time to write a book about it. I've read Jim Mars's book, Rise of the Fourth Reich. It's a classic. We're living it. And honestly, I think America is the Fourth Reich and NATO.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. That's what it is. That is the WEF. That is what's going on with NATO. That is the one, the one government, the world government, the new world order. That's what this is, guys.
It is fascism.
This is fascism. They've, as I've said, they've formed this unholy alliance with the extreme left, if you will. I hate using left, right, but okay. but they have this alliance right now to tear things down. But at the core of all of this, it's fascism.
Right. It's not communism. There's a lot of confusion about that. But the way fascism is defined historically, at least by Mussolini, is a marriage of corporations and the state. So what we see happening with the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, these vaccines, the marriage of big government and corporations like Pfizer and Moderna and J&J, that is fascism defined. And laws were made based on what those corporations wanted for their profit margin. And of course, the politicians get their kickbacks too, I'm sure. That is the textbook definition of fascism, which is very different from communism. That's why the communists and the fascists were always rivals historically for the last 100 years. That's the age-old battle in Europe, isn't it? It's always the communists versus the fascists. Mm-hmm. So please, let's not get that confused.
This is what I think people don't understand, is they're both a form of socialism.
Yes.
It's just that there's some differences that define the two or separate them, but they're both still a form of socialism. Yes. I think fascism is it just, we're seeing economic fascism right now. Every corporation is on the take. They're all paid off. And because they're all taking this, huge amounts of money from government, whether it's a cricket farm or an auto company or a battery plant or whatever it is, they're all on the take, and they're all now under government control. In order to get the money, they have to do certain things.
Or is it the other way around? Is the government under corporate control? Are the politicians bought and controlled by the corporations who fund them?
It kind of goes both ways. It's a match made in hell, is what it is, right?
Well said.
Anytime you have a relationship like that, there's influence that goes back and forth.
And there are many different flavors of fascism. I mean, Mussolini's fascism was very different from Hitler's fascism.
Yeah. And you see, that's why people don't realize, this is why people don't realize what's going on. What is, if I went out and I said to someone, what's a Nazi? Or what's a fascist?
You'll get 10 different answers.
Yeah. People won't be able to define it.
Right.
And if they do, it will come down to, well, those are the people who killed the Jews. And that's about it. And they have this cliched image from, Indiana Jones movies of an evil Nazi dude who doesn't like Jewish people. And that's about it. And they think that it was that we defeated them in World War II, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And so it's not really a thing because we beat them. No, we didn't. They never went away. They've always been among us. They're just really smart. They've been sort of underground, operating in the shadows. They've been working since World War II to set all of this stuff up. It is the WEF. It is the New World Order. It is many people in our governments. Why do you think our deputy prime minister stands there with a Nazi banner from Ukraine? Why do you think they just kind of look the other way when they have Nazi battalions in Ukraine? They don't care because they are Nazis.
What else could you infer from the evidence presented, as you just presented it so well?
If you are able to recognize what they're doing, it's quite evident. But our education, our schools, from kindergarten to university, fascism has become a cliche for people. They don't know, people don't know how to see it. They don't recognize it for what it really is. It isn't just about the Holocaust. That was a symptom of the problem. That was an end result of the problem. But fascism could be directed at any group. If you want to look at the prejudice that it generates,
right.
It's about eugenics. What do we have? And it's about medical bigotry. It's about, and what do we have now? We have that, don't we, in our society? It's about a certain level of disgust for certain groups of people, certain kinds of people that they think are dirty. It's the same mindset. And we have that today. Who's dirty today? It's the people who didn't get the thing in the arm. There's a certain level of disgust for even poor people. It's run throughout history. That's why if you go back and you even look at the history of eugenics, even before World War II,
Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, just an elite group of people who look down their noses at the unwashed masses, at the poor people, and they think that poverty is a result of inferior breeding. Now, you can argue that ignorance, or maybe people with lower IQs, or if you have a developmental disability and you're not able to work, then yeah, you're going to be impoverished. So we better do something to help those people, right? But if you're a fascist and you just have a socially generated internal disgust for people that you don't, in a group like that, then you don't want to help them. You want to get rid of them.
And we tend to also misunderstand fascism, like you said, in terms of race. Because of what the Nazis did, we always associate fascism with racism. And yes, there's a big racial element there. But like you just explained, there's all different kinds of hatred and discrimination against people not based on race, whether it be religion or now the medical bigotry, the unvaccinated, or like the new Jews, or in the geopolitical situation, what you often hear today from Russian people is they feel like they are the new Jews. If you ask the people, say, in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine, they will tell you the discrimination they've suffered at the hands of these Ukrainian Nazis is for one reason and one reason only. They are Russians, either ethnically, or they speak Russian, or they identify as Russian, and they are targeted like the Jews and the Poles were. And let's not forget also, even before World War II, going back 100 years in Ukraine, that Russians were targeted in pogroms. They were always looked upon as racially inferior. They call them orcs. That's the insult that they call them, as orcs, like they're subhuman. Just recently, you've heard the Ukrainians refer to the Russians as cockroaches. They're not even human, they said. And their job is to exterminate all those cockroaches.
That's right.
If that's not classic Hitler-esque fascism, folks, I don't know what is. You have to understand that whole long history, though, that these two Slavic tribes have been fighting each other for hundreds of years. But if you just take the last 100 years, 10 years before World War II, in 1919, 1920, 21, there were horrible pogroms, genocide, in my opinion, committed in Ukraine against Russian people, Jewish people, Polish people. Once Hitler came to power, once the war broke out and the Ukrainians allied themselves with Germany, it just gave them an excuse to mass murder these people they already hated, but on a much bigger state-sanctioned scale.
Yeah.
And then you have the concentration camps and you have the mass executions. But it's important to remember that the reason they targeted and hated the communists of the USSR so much was they affiliated in their minds, in their twisted minds, that communists, Russians, and Jews were all the same. They called them the Muscovites. You know, they portrayed communists as Jews, and therefore Jews had to be exterminated, whether they were Jewish or not.
This is the son of a Nazi, Hans Frank, or Frank. This gentleman's name is Nicholas Frank, who despises his father. This is an old interview from the BBC back in 2017. I bring this up to show you that fascism is not dead. He warns in this interview, the son of Hans Frank, who was he was a Nazi leader in Poland and was convicted of war crimes and then was executed at the Nuremberg trials after they ended. But he's warning that fascism could easily bubble to the surface again in Germany. I'm just going to let this roll.
He's right.
Yeah.
Love Germany. I love being world champion in football, for instance. Really, I'm a nationalist, yes. And I also loved very much when Merkel said, we will do it with the refugees. Now she is, everybody will be thrown out. That was a good thing. But also, as you can see, especially with Merkel and the refugees, everything changed because the silent majority, as if it were Jews again, this swamp is coming.
You really feel that? You feel so insecure about your Germany today?
Yes.
Is this
Don't trust us. And the special thing, I was very happy when the European community, yes, suddenly we were watched with countries all around Germany. We have invaded them centuries before, sometimes or often. So that gave me a happy feeling. Now England is leaving, Poland is like a dictatorship, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Italy. Now, who is the strongest left? The Germans.
Yes, but the Germans, as you paint it, the Germany today is a bulwark of moderation, of tolerance compared to so many messages coming from Hungary or from Marine Le Pen or from so many people in so many corners.
As long as our economy is great and as long as we made money, everything is very democratic. But let's wait and hopefully not see if we have 5 to 10 years heavy economical problems. And the swamp is a lake and is a sea and will swallow again everything. And
See, and that's what you see the way the interviewer started talking about, Marine Le Pen and, going after conservative or populist leaders. No. We're seeing that as well. This is so dishonest. Here's an article from The Atlantic, written by David Frum.
Not a fan of David Frum, but let's hear what he has to say.
There's a word for what Trumpism is becoming. The
you knew it.
Messaging
It's David
Trump,
Frum. Of course he would say that.
And his supporters has inflicted a measurable wound on American society. And of course, the word is fascism, right? I'm sorry, folks. Trump supporters are not the fascists. I won't bore you with the article.
No, there are some fascists, though, who are Trump supporters.
No doubt.
Just like there are some communists that are Democrats and, they may support Trump. Certainly there are white nationalist groups out there that are big on Trump. Let's be honest. But that doesn't mean his entire movement is full of, Nazis.
Right. That's
No.
right.
And I don't see Trump's style of governing as fascist.
No, Trump is not a fascist. That's the point. Like, any more than, well,
not classically fascist anyway.
He's not. Well, he's not the fascist you're looking for. Okay? He's not. Trudeau, on the other hand,
is a real fascist.
Yeah, he is engaged. He engages in fascism. Trump.
So does Biden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Biden's a fascist.
Yes. See, but then you look at someone like Maxime Bernier from the People's Party, definitely not a fascist, but they call him a fascist. They say he's a fascist. They'll try to attach fascism to him because he's a populist, but populism is not fascism. Nationalism in itself is not fascism. If you want to talk about ultranationalism with a focus on ethnic or even national or cultural purity, that's, again, a symptom of fascism. That's what we're seeing in Ukraine when they say things, when these Nazis in Ukraine say things like Ukraine for Ukrainians. What they mean is they don't want Russian culture, Russian language polluting Ukrainian culture and their version or vision of Ukrainian nationalism. So they want to purify it. How do they do that? Well, sometimes it comes down to execution, purging, genocide even.
Yes. It's been going on for 8 years in the Donbass. Most people just didn't know it until this most recent invasion happened, but it's been going on for a long time.
And in my opinion, if you want to talk about the thing in the shoulder and the way some people in society have been marginalized because they didn't get a thing in the shoulder, then that is also a form of fascism. It's medical bigotry. It's connected to that mindset.
It's eugenics. It's a human experiment. I don't think people are wrong who say that these vaccines, this mRNA technology is very like something Dr. Mengele would have come up with. It's like the biggest human experiment
we got to be very
all
careful.
Time.
We need to be careful about what we say.
Okay,
we will get
just
banned.
Stop me if I violate the rules before I say something I'll regret.
Any reference to anything like that has to be done using other words.
We can't say Nazis, huh? Or we can't talk about Nazi medical experiments, historical.
We can talk about that. We just can't talk about the current thing in the arm, right?
I gotcha. Okay. Vaccines are wonderful. Everybody go get the thing in the arm.
Twice, 3 times as often as possible. Get extra because it works great. Tastes great, less filling.
Good and good for you. No, I don't think so. But that's my opinion, YouTube. Allowed to have an opinion. I'm not a scientist. I'm not sitting here as a doctor telling you that anything's good or bad. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, not allowed to have opinions today. That's also a form of fascism.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Censorship always goes in hand with fascism. It couldn't work without it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So it just keeps popping up. People need to be aware. This is what's happening. But we need to somehow, I wish somehow we could educate people so that they could recognize it. I think that since World War II, the school systems, government, they've purposely watered down the way people have been taught about fascism and communism. they've turned it into a cliche, so people don't understand what it is really, and they don't recognize it.
That's a great point. That's true. It's true, especially if you went to school during the Cold War. You got a whole different version of history. And it's not necessarily all true. You know, while we're on the subject of the situation in Russia, Ukraine, if anybody out there is interested to learn the longer story that's led us to this point, if you want to go back and take a look at the last 100 years and the history of the Ukrainians and the Russians, there's a great new documentary produced by RT that you can watch on Rumble, Odyssey, pretty much anywhere but YouTube. But I would highly recommend it. It's called Russophobia. And that's what we're dealing with today. It's Russophobia. But there's a long history of it, specifically between Ukraine and Russia. And if you don't know the history of the situation and how that ties into fascism, I'd recommend that you watch it. It's an excellent, excellent documentary. Maybe we'll play some excerpts from it on the show next week.
This is something I watch this guy from time to time. I like his videos. It's Bjorn Andreas Bull-Hansen. He was a weightlifter, and he's a conservationist. Pretty level-headed guy. And in this video, and he's had other ones as well, but in this one, he makes reference to the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Great Reset. When you hear the Fourth Industrial Revolution, I just want you to remember the references to the Fourth Reich. Because, folks, I think that's really what the Fourth Industrial Revolution is.
Interesting.
I'll let a little bit of this roll. We're not going to watch the whole thing. If you want to watch this video from Bjorn, it's available on YouTube. He has a very successful channel. I highly recommend that you check him out. I like his videos. He's just so kind of laid back and just so easygoing. I really like him. Hang on. He's just soft-spoken, thoughtful, slow pace, but always has high-value information.
Because we are probably at the start of what the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab like to call the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I will talk a little bit about that and why I have decided not to be part of that. Why I have decided to reject modern life altogether. And why you should consider perhaps doing the same. Now, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, you know, you can go to the World Economic Forum's website and read all about it there, at least. You can read what they write about, what they write there, you know, and you can make up your own mind on what it's about. But if you ask me, I would say it's about control. First and foremost, it's about control. Human beings are chaotic beings, and it has always been a main goal for all kings and emperors to get more control over the population. And that's what this whole thing, this Fourth Industrial Revolution, is about. It really isn't such a new thing. We have seen this before in world history many times. It's just that the tools they are using are quite new. People will say that, you know, well, how can you say that you're rejecting modern life? You're sitting there talking to a camera. Well, actually, some people claim that I'm talking to a smartphone. I don't have a smartphone. I'm using a camera. And you're using a lot of modern gear, you know, high-tech gear, titanium kettle here, and everything, you know. And yeah, that's true. But you know what? All those things are already a part of the past. Modern life, the modern life, or I guess you could call it modernity, that I'm talking about here, is the kind of life, the kind of society that we are about to enter. Now, there are many aspects to this, and I won't get into all of them, but making everything digital is one aspect, or should I say a problem. Now, a digital currency, state-controlled cryptocurrency, for instance, will be extremely effective when it comes to controlling people's behavior, because they can basically decide what you're allowed to buy and spend money on, and so on and so on. Another problem, of course, is that the concept of ownership will be a thing of the past. By now you have heard the phrase, you will own nothing and you will be happy. You will be happy, or else. That's feudalism. I'm not saying it's exactly the same as medieval times feudalism, but if your right to own stuff is taken away from you, or if it's made so difficult or so expensive for you to own your own stuff, then basically we have feudalism. You know, someone's going to own the stuff that people will be renting or borrowing or whatever. And they will be the kings and the emperors. They will be the people pulling the strings, making the big decisions.
And that is truth. They're going to be calling the shots. The things that keep us free, there are rights, property rights. They'll become irrelevant in this new society where we own nothing. That's because they're going to do away with property rights. We won't be free. Freedom will be gone. They don't respect freedom. They don't want us to be free. They want us to be controlled. You will eat crickets. You won't know it, but you'll like it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll dig in to cricket dining.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!